For years, I genuinely didn't know how much my son actually understood. He is nonverbal, autistic. And when he was young, he wouldn't respond to his name. You couldn't even give him instructions. And honestly, sometimes it felt like the world just disappeared before he even reached him. And I think as a parent, that's one of the hardest things. Because you spent years wondering, can he understand me at all? But recently, it feels like my son is quietly showing us something. So my son got diagnosed around age 2.5 maybe. And I remember that whole period just feeling confusing. Because deep down we already knew that something was off, something was different. He wasn't talking. I mean, he'd make sounds, he'd repeat things that he saw in his cartoons. But there was no actual speech that you would expect someone of that age. And communication, it just wasn't there yet. One of the biggest things were he wouldn't respond to his name. No matter how many times I called him, he just wouldn't respond. And it wasn't a case of he's just not listening. He wouldn't react, wouldn't look, wouldn't even acknowledge, like as if he never heard anything. And it brings a question to your head at that time, which is, does he not understand me? Or can he not respond to me? And I don't think people realize how much that affects you emotionally. Because communication is something that most of us take for granted. It's expected. Like you would say to your child, come here, and they'd come. You'd say stop, and they'd stop. You say their name, and they'd definitely listen. But when those things, those normal things don't happen, you start overthinking everything. Every reaction, every silence, literally spending years just analyzing all of the little signs. Any little thing that tells you, my child understands me. And with my son, things started to change little by little. And often we'd miss a lot of those signs. And it wasn't something dramatic or a big bang moment. It was just one day I was calling him like I'd always call him. But one day he'd listen. I said his name, he'd turn around and look at me. And I know that sounds very small. But when you've lived for so long without that little thing, it's actually massive. And from that, little instructions started to follow. If I told him to come here, he'd actually listen, he'd actually come. If I told him to stop, he'd stop. But this wasn't a case where he'd just suddenly listened and, gone from not listening. It was, he'd take half an instruction. Maybe I'll tell him to stop. He won't immediately stop. And then gradually as time went on, he'd take full instructions. And now, at the age of 7, as he's about to transition to year 3, in the mornings when I say to him, come on, we need to get ready, you need to go to school, he comes running. He understands that he needs to go to school. And now my child's school, my child's teachers have started to notice. In the last couple of months, his teachers have said that he listens a lot more. He takes instructions a lot more. He understands routines. And honestly, hearing that just changes your week. And now, when he gets to school, he knows his routine. He knows he has to take off his shoes and socks and put it in a designated area. He knows at the end of the day when I go to collect him, he can't just open the door and run away. He stands by the door. He'll get his coat. He'll get his shoes. He'll get his bag. He'll wait. And this bit here, I've spoken about this in a previous video where I've had to carry my son on my back, literally, to school every single day. But now, this has changed. Now he walks to school. He'll either hold my hand or hold his sister's hand, or sometimes both. And he will walk to school. And honestly, just seeing all of his teachers smile and be happy that he's doing this, it just hits you differently. Because this shows progress, and progress that's being noticed. And then something happened which genuinely shocked me. I asked my son for a kiss in English. He came, gave me a kiss. Then as a joke, I asked him in Bangla, my mother tongue. And surprisingly, he came and gave me a kiss. So this boy understands 2 languages. And honestly, at home, we don't actually talk Bangla a lot. We speak in English. When we go to my mother's house or their grandmother's house, we speak a bit more Bangla. But he's picked it up. He understands. From a boy that didn't even respond to his name or take instructions to now understanding 2 languages. And this is when I realized that he's been absorbing a lot more than I knew, that I could comprehend. Not just words, everything. And this experience is really teaching me that non-verbal, although may mean no speech, but it doesn't mean unaware. Non-verbal doesn't mean disconnected. And non-verbal definitely doesn't mean that there's nothing going on internally. As parents, we look at a lot of the external. What can our child do? What can he say? When will he talk? All of those things. We sometimes fail to understand that internally there is stuff happening. Yes, my son can't speak, or at least bring words to his mouth and structure a sentence. But that doesn't mean he doesn't understand everything. That doesn't mean internally he isn't processing. And right now, this honestly brings a lot of hope, a lot of joy to my heart, knowing that my child understands. And I can't wait to see how far this understanding takes him. And that's going to do it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do let me know what you're going through with your child and what kind of progress you've made. And like always, stay safe.